Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I checked into the same old lakeside motel, the one I came to whenever I needed to get away from everything. The faded neon sign flickered in the dark, the kind of place where the only thing that mattered was the bed and the silence. The room had a cheap, familiar smell, like old carpet and industrial-grade cleaning solution. But it was quiet. No one cared who you were here. I needed that. I dropped my duffel bag on the bed. The fishing rod meant for my wife's dad lay in there, like a cruel reminder of everything I thought I was building for her. Something simple, something I thought would impress her family. I didn't even realize how much it stung until now. What a joke that gift had become. I stood in front of the tiny window, staring out at the lake. The water was calm, still under the moonlight. But my head? It was anything but. Her voice kept playing on repeat, the way she casually laughed about how she'd take my savings once the divorce was through. The boyfriend, the paralegal, handling everything. It was all a joke to her. I gritted my teeth. She was planning it. She was already planning to bleed me dry, all while making a fool of me in the process. The anger built up inside me, like a tight knot in my chest. I walked over to the motel bar, hoping a drink might settle my nerves, maybe give me some perspective. The bartender nodded at me without a word as I took my usual seat at the counter. It was quiet here, just a few regulars, their voices low as they watched some sports game on the TV. I didn't care about the game. I just wanted the whiskey. He poured me a glass, and I swirled it slowly, watching the amber liquid settle at the bottom of the glass. I took a sip, the burn spreading down my throat, trying to numb the feeling of betrayal that kept surging through me. The more I thought about it, the worse it got. I started connecting the dots. The smug guy I'd passed in the elevator this morning could have been him, the guy she was with. It wasn't hard to picture, her laughing about how easy it was to manipulate me, how easy it was to take me for granted. I was the fool, the one who worked my ass off, kept the roof over our heads, and she was out there playing house with some guy who wasn't even trying. I took another sip, and that damn fishing rod in my bag. It wasn't for her, was it? It was for him. I had bought it for her dad, hoping it would show I cared, that I was trying to fit into her world. But it wasn't me she wanted impressing her family, it was him. I slammed the glass down on the bar a little too hard, making the bartender glance over. I didn't care. "Rough day?" he asked, his voice bored. I didn't answer at first. Then I looked at him, noticing how his eyes barely made it past my shoulder as he polished a glass. Typical. He wasn't really interested in a conversation. I nodded. "Yeah, you could say that." The door jingled behind me, and I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned, half expecting it to be someone I'd passed on the way in, another stranger. But instead, there she was. Laura. She stood there with a grin, her high school smile that always made everything seem a little brighter. Her brown hair was pulled back into a loose ponytail, and she had a casual grace about her, like she hadn't changed a bit since those carefree days. Well, fancy seeing you here," she teased, her voice light. She leaned against the counter, her eyes glinting with mischief. I tried to smile back, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. "What are you doing here?" "Visiting family, same old thing," she said with a shrug. "But you look like you've seen better days." I chuckled, though it was hollow. "I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old." She raised an eyebrow, not buying it. "Right, sure." I took another sip of whiskey. She sat down beside me, her eyes scanning my face. "So, what's going on? You're here in a motel, all by yourself, drinking whiskey like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. Something's up." "Just some things with the wife?" I muttered, not really wanting to dive into it. But she was already pulling me in, like she always did. "Come on," she said softly, her voice warmer now. "I know you didn't walk in here for a drink just to sit in silence. What's going on?" I ran a hand through my hair, frustration welling up again. "I found out my wife's been... I overheard her talking to her friend on the phone. She's been seeing someone else, some guy, a paralegal, and she's already planning to take everything once we divorce. She's been using me the whole time." Her expression shifted, concern replacing the teasing glint. "Jesus," she muttered, shaking her head. "I'm sorry, man." "Yeah, me too." I ran a hand over my face, trying to shake the sting. "I just don't know how I didn't see it sooner. It all makes sense now. She tilted her head, her voice softening. I know you've been working your ass off for her. She doesn't deserve you. I let out a bitter laugh, swirling my drink again. Guess I'm not the guy she wanted, huh? Maybe not, she said, but you're definitely the guy who doesn't deserve this. I just stared into my glass, the weight of it all pressing down on me. I don't know what to do next, Laura. I feel like I've been a fool. She leaned forward, her eyes intense but gentle. Well, you're not the only one who's been fooled, and maybe it's time you stop being one. You don't have to figure this out alone. I glanced up at her, noticing how close she was, how familiar. We were both older now, but some things didn't change. I was still drawn to her, just like in high school. What do you mean? I asked, my voice quieter now. She smiled, offering a sympathetic shrug. I mean, if you need help thinking this through, I'm here. We can figure out what your next move is together. For the first time in hours, I felt a small flicker of relief. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. We sat at a corner booth in the diner, the kind with cracked vinyl seats and a neon sign flickering outside. The clatter of plates and the murmur of other customers blended into the background as I tried to focus on Laura. She looked the same as I remembered, but there was something different about her now. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, more confident, more assured. So, what's the deal with you? What have you been up to? I asked, leaning forward, trying to sound casual. She smiled, leaning back in the booth with her coffee mug. Well, after I left town, I started doing real estate law, specializing in small business property cases, which means I get to work with a lot of different types of people. Some good, some, well, not so good. She laughed, and I found myself smiling too, feeling a little more at ease. Thy small business, huh? I nodded. That sounds useful. You ever miss the old days when we were hustling to get your landscaping thing off the ground? Her eyes twinkled at the mention. I think about it sometimes. We made a pretty damn good team back then, didn't we? She said, a hint of nostalgia in her voice. I chuckled. Yeah, we did. But hey, it worked, didn't it? That landscaping business wouldn't have gotten off the ground without your help. True, she agreed with a grin. And you didn't do too bad either. I mean, look at you now. Own a hardware store, right? Yeah, I said, my smile fading just slightly. Still running it. Just trying to keep everything intact while dealing with, well, everything else. She raised an eyebrow. You're talking about your wife, right? You didn't really go into much detail last night. I took a deep breath and nodded. Yeah, I thought I knew her, you know? We built a life together. At least, I thought we were. Turns out, she's been planning the whole divorce for a while. And not just for a divorce. She's got the paralegal boyfriend, and apparently, she's already figured out how she's going to take everything. She's got me right where she wants me. Laura's expression softened as she studied me, her eyes sharp but not judgmental. That's tough, she said, her voice low. I can't imagine how that must feel. Yeah, I muttered, feeling the sting of it again. It's not just the cheating, though. It's the way she's been playing me. She thinks she can take the store, the money, everything, and I just can't let that happen. She nodded slowly. Well, you came to the right place for advice. I mean, I can't give you legal advice, but I can definitely help you brainstorm ways to protect your business. I leaned in, a little more hopeful. I need something, Laura. She's already planning to drain the business dry, and I don't even know where to start to stop it. I don't want her to walk away with everything. Laura looked thoughtful for a moment. Well, first of all, if she's trying to use the business against you, you need to make sure you've got everything locked down. You might want to move some assets around, protect the store's deed. Maybe even look into keeping the business in your name only, if it isn't already. I nodded, the ideas clicking into place. That's exactly what I need. I need to move things around legally before she has a chance to make a move. You know how to handle this stuff, right? I do, she said, her smile returning. But I need to be clear on something. I can't do anything shady. I can help you protect yourself legally, but I can't break any laws. We're going to have to keep things above board, okay? I exhaled slowly, the pressure in my chest easing a little. Above board? Yeah, I get it. I just need something solid, something I can rely on. Well, you've got me, she said, her voice firm, reassuring. But before we do anything, I think we should sit down and go over everything you have in place already. Make sure there's no legal loopholes she can exploit. I don't want her getting any easy wins. Yeah, I said, the weight of everything sinking in. I'll need to figure out how to make sure she can't touch anything. She's already made it clear she doesn't care about me, just what she can get. That's the first step then, Laura said, tapping her fingers against her coffee cup. We need to make sure she doesn't get away with it, and the sooner we do it, the better. I nodded, feeling a little more like I was taking control again. Maybe it was the whiskey in my veins, or maybe it was just hearing someone who actually understood the situation. But I finally felt like I had a plan. Thanks, Laura, I said, realizing how much I meant it. I don't know what I would have done without you offering to help. I don't think I could have figured this out on my own. She shrugged modestly. It's what friends do, right? She said with a smile that didn't feel forced. Now, let's get to work. The idea of the car still sat like a pit in my stomach. The cherry red convertible, my wife's obsession. I knew it wasn't for her. It was for him, her boyfriend. It was another sign that confirmed everything I had already started to piece together. She wanted me out of the picture, and this was just another play to make it happen. I called her from the motel, trying to keep my voice casual. Hey, it looks like my delivery's running late, but, I've been thinking about that car you want. I want to surprise you. I've got a buyer lined up for your SUV, and once that's sold, we can get the convertible. How's that sound? There was a brief pause, the kind that felt like she was calculating her response, weighing her options. Finally, she sighed, the sweetness in her voice all too fake. That's perfect. You always know how to cheer me up, babe. I can't wait. Her easy agreement stung. She didn't even hesitate, didn't even question it. The whole thing felt like a well-rehearsed act, and it only confirmed my suspicions. This wasn't a surprise for her. It was part of the plan. She was in control, and I was the pawn. I ended the call, the knot in my stomach tightening. It was all so damn calculated. I couldn't let her have the upper hand anymore. I had to play the game differently. I met Laura a few hours later at the motel. I'd told her about the car setup, the way my wife had jumped at the chance without a second thought. Laura listened carefully, her brow furrowing as I talked. So, she's playing you, using your own money to get what she wants, Laura said. That's the thing about people like her. They think they can control the situation because they have something you want. I nodded, feeling the weight of it all. Yeah, well, she's got me figured out, and she's not even hiding it. I've been a fool. Laura's expression softened. You're not a fool. You just didn't see it coming. No one does, not when they're in love. I shifted in my seat. I don't know how to stop her. I feel like she's got me by the balls, and I don't have anything left to fight with. She took a deep breath, thinking it over. Well, you do have something. Leverage. You know that convertible thing? We can use it. I raised an eyebrow. How? Simple, Laura said, her voice calm but firm. You set up a driver, right? We could plant a hidden camera in your apartment, use the setup to catch her in the act. If we get footage of her talking about the scam with her boyfriend, that could work in your favor in court. It gives you evidence, something she can't deny. I wasn't sure at first. The idea of spying on her made my stomach churn, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was the only way I could get something concrete. I needed control again. I leaned forward. Okay, let's do it. I need that leverage. Laura nodded, but there was a seriousness to her now. We can do this, but I want you to understand something. It has to be airtight. We can't slip up. If this goes wrong, you'll have nothing. Got it, I said, feeling the pressure build. We'll do it your way. She studied me for a moment, her gaze steady. We'll do it the right way. Let me arrange it. We'll get it done while she's out test driving cars. A sense of purpose stirred inside me as I thought about what was ahead. For the first time since I'd overheard her call, I felt like I had a way out. It wasn't going to be easy, but at least I wasn't powerless anymore. The plan was set in motion. We arranged for the camera to be placed the next day while my wife was out. And as Laura promised, we focused on making sure everything was locked down legally, protecting the store, moving the deed into her name temporarily, keeping the assets safe from her reach. It was a tightrope walk, but I was walking it now, not standing at the edge, frozen in place like I had been for months. Laura was right. It wasn't about being perfect anymore. It was about playing the game smarter than she was. I sat in the motel room, staring at my phone, the screen still open on the message I'd just sent to Laura. The weight of everything from the past few days, hell, the past few months, pressed on me. I'd just crossed a line by involving Laura in all of this. But I needed her help. I needed someone who didn't look at me with pity, or worse, with fear. Someone who understood what it was like to fight for what was yours. I put the phone down and ran my hands through my hair. The adrenaline from the plan was starting to fade, and all I could think about was the next step. Getting the camera set up, making sure everything was airtight, and keeping my wife from destroying everything I'd worked for. The knock at the door startled me. I checked the peephole, then swung it open. It was Laura. I blinked at her, surprised to see her standing there, looking as cool and collected as ever. "Hey," she said, a faint grin tugging at her lips. "Thought I'd drop by. You up for a chat?" "Yeah, sure," I said, stepping aside to let her in. She walked past me and took a seat at the edge of the bed, casually leaning back like she owned the place. I grabbed a chair from the corner of the room and sat across from her. "So, what's the plan?" she asked, her voice steady, but her eyes sharp. "I told you about the setup with the car, right?" I said. "Well, I've arranged for the camera. We're doing it tomorrow. She's out test driving, and we'll get the footage of her talking to her boyfriend. I just need to make sure everything goes smoothly." Laura nodded. "Sounds solid, but remember, it has to be perfect. No mistakes. We can't afford to have anything compromised." "I know," I muttered. "I'm trusting you with this." She gave me a soft smile. "You're not the only one. Trust me." There was a long pause between us. I wasn't sure what to say, but there was something between us now, something unspoken that lingered in the air. I could feel it, and I was pretty sure she could too. "I'm sorry for dropping all this on you, Laura," I finally said, the words coming out heavier than I'd intended. "You didn't sign up for this." "Don't worry about it," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "I've got your back. Besides, I want to see this through, not just for you, but for what's right." I smiled, appreciating the weight of her words. It felt like we were on the same team again, like we were both standing on the same side of something bigger. Then her expression shifted a little. There was a softness in her eyes. "You know," she began, her voice lower than usual, "you don't have to go through this alone. I'm not just here as your lawyer or whatever you need me to be." She paused for a moment, and I could tell she was choosing her words carefully. I swallowed, the atmosphere between us thickening. "What are you saying?" She hesitated before leaning forward, her tone shifting just slightly. "I'm just saying, there's more to this than just legal work, you know? I'm here, for you, if you need it." I nodded slowly, not sure what to make of it. But the more she spoke, the more I realized how much I'd missed her, how much I'd relied on her. Not just as a lawyer, but as someone I could trust. I had a lot of things running through my head, but this wasn't something I had to rush. "I appreciate that," I said quietly, unsure how else to respond. She smiled, her eyes softening, and that was all she said for a few moments. The silence stretched, and I let it. This moment, this calm before the storm, was something I didn't want to disrupt. "I should go," she said eventually, standing up. "I've got some things to handle before tomorrow, but we'll make sure everything goes according to plan." I stood as well, watching her head for the door. "Yeah, tomorrow. We'll do it then." She stopped just before the door. Turning, she met my eyes. "You're doing the right thing, you know. Don't second guess it." I gave her a tight smile. "I hope so." Laura smiled back and then stepped out, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I sank back into the chair, the weight of the plan pressing down on me again. But this time, there was something else there too, a small sense of hope. I didn't know where things would go from here. I didn't know if the plan would work, or if my wife would just bulldoze over me like she had been. But I wasn't going to let her take everything anymore. Tomorrow, I'd have my answer. A few days after Laura and I had set up the camera, I couldn't shake the unease that had settled deep in my gut. Every hour felt like it dragged on forever, each second gnawing at me as I waited for the footage to confirm everything I already suspected. Finally, the moment came. I went into the motel room, heart racing, fingers trembling as I opened the file on the laptop. The footage flickered on, and there they were, my wife and her boyfriend, sitting too close, laughing on the couch like they didn't have a care in the world. I had to watch it twice to fully process what I was hearing. "Once we get that convertible and the cash from the divorce, we're out," her boyfriend said, leaning back. "We can finally quit hustling these rich suckers." My stomach dropped. I could almost hear the self-satisfaction in his voice. They were laughing, joking about how easy it had been. "I swear he's such an idiot," my wife said, her voice dripping with contempt. He's just handing it all over, no questions asked. I'll take everything, including the savings, and it'll be easy. His store is just a little side bonus. I froze, the weight of their words sinking in. It wasn't just cheating, it was a scam they'd run before. I was just the next mark in a long line of men who'd been taken for a ride. I shut the laptop with a snap, suddenly feeling lightheaded. The air in the room felt thicker, suffocating. I couldn't believe how deep the betrayal went. The fishing rod, the new SUV, all the plans we had. None of it meant a damn thing. I stood there for a long time, staring at the closed laptop, trying to steady my breath. This wasn't just a broken marriage, it was fraud. I needed to do something about it. I grabbed the laptop and drove straight to Laura's office. I didn't call her beforehand. I couldn't wait. I needed help, and I needed it now. She was sitting behind her desk when I stormed in, her eyebrows raising slightly at my frantic pace. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice still calm, but there was concern in her eyes. I placed the laptop down in front of her. "Watch this," I said, my voice tight. Laura glanced at the screen as it flickered to life, her eyes quickly narrowing as she took in the conversation. As soon as it ended, she turned to me, her expression serious. "This is big," she said, her tone low. "This could be more than just a divorce. It's fraud, straight up. We could press criminal charges." I felt a knot loosen in my chest, but it didn't take away the anger I was feeling. "Yeah, I know, but I need to move fast. She's already got plans in motion. I need to protect my business, my accounts, everything." Laura was already pulling out her phone, dialing a number without a word. "I have a contact in law enforcement. I'm calling them now." I watched as she spoke with authority, outlining everything we had, the footage, the statements, the clear evidence that my wife had been running a scam. When she hung up, she turned to me. "The police are going to get involved quickly. They'll want to move fast on this, especially since they're targeting multiple men with this kind of scheme." I exhaled, the realization of it all hitting me like a freight train. "You think they'll be able to do something?" Laura gave me a sharp look, her confidence unwavering. "Absolutely. We've got the evidence. We've got the law on our side now. But you need to be ready. This is going to make waves." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and disbelief. "Then let's do it. Let's make sure she can't get away with this." She smiled slightly. "That's the plan." A few days later, the police moved in, arresting my wife and her boyfriend within a week. The whole town found out quickly, and it wasn't long before news of the arrests spread through my wife's family, causing waves of embarrassment and shock. It felt like justice, but it also felt hollow. Everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed, had been threatened by a scam I couldn't see coming. With Laura's help, I filed for divorce, citing fraud, and secured a court order that protected all my business and personal accounts. The store, my livelihood, was safe, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being blindsided. The divorce wasn't final yet, but with the legal protections in place, I could breathe again. I could finally focus on rebuilding my life. As we sat in Laura's office one afternoon, going over the final details of the case, I couldn't help but notice the way she looked at me. There was something else there, something more than just business. "You did good," she said, her voice low and approving. "You didn't let her walk all over you." I half smiled, grateful for her support. "I wish I'd caught on sooner," she shrugged. "None of us are perfect, but you're standing your ground now, and that's what matters." I paused, feeling the weight of everything we'd been through. "You know, I owe you more than just thanks, Laura. You've been here for me more than anyone else." Her expression softened. "I'm just doing my job, but I'm glad I could help. You deserve better than what she gave you." I nodded, thinking about everything that had happened, how much had changed, and how much I still had to figure out. "You've helped me more than you know." The silence between us hung for a moment, and I found myself saying something that had been on my mind for a while now. "I don't know what happens next, but I feel like I've missed a lot, you know? With you." She met my gaze, and for a moment, it felt like everything that had been building between us was finally breaking through. "I've been thinking the same thing," she admitted, a slight smile tugging at her lips. "But you've had a lot on your plate, and I didn't want to make things harder." I smiled back, the tension between us finally easing. Life's too short for second guessing, don't you think? She nodded, her smile growing. Yeah, I think you're right. I felt a spark of hope, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe this wasn't just about surviving. Maybe it was about finding something real after everything had fallen apart. The arrest happened quickly. The police didn't waste time once they had everything they needed, and within a week, my wife and her boyfriend were behind bars. The news spread through town like wildfire. My wife's family was mortified, and my phone was filled with calls from people I barely knew, asking if it was true, asking how I was holding up. It wasn't exactly the kind of attention I wanted, but it was justice. At least, that's what I told myself. The authorities confirmed what I already suspected. This wasn't the first time they'd pulled this stunt. They'd targeted multiple men with similar setups. Men who had no idea they were being scammed until it was too late. With Laura's help, I filed for divorce, citing fraud. I secured a court order that protected all my personal and business accounts. The store, the only thing that mattered now, was safe. And yet, as relieved as I felt, a part of me still felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. But I wasn't the only one who'd been fooled. She'd played everyone, and now she was paying for it. We sat in Laura's office a few days after the arrest, the weight of everything finally starting to lift off my shoulders. My wife was gone, and my business was secure. But as I looked at Laura, sitting across from me, it wasn't the divorce I was thinking about. "You did good," she said, breaking the silence. Her tone was professional, but I could see the hint of something more in her eyes. "Thanks," I replied, my voice low. "I couldn't have done it without you." She gave a soft nod. "You've got more strength than you know. You stood up for yourself when it mattered." I smiled, but it felt hollow. I should have seen it coming. I should have figured it out sooner. Laura's gaze softened. "You can't blame yourself for that. She was good at what she did. And you weren't just her mark. You were her husband. That's hard to untangle, no matter what." "Yeah," I said, rubbing my neck. "It was just... everything was so real. She made me believe in us, in the future we were building. But it was all a lie." "You don't have to figure it all out now," Laura said, her voice firm but gentle. "You've done what you needed to. You're free. It's time to focus on what's next." I nodded, but there was still a piece of me that couldn't shake the nagging feeling of everything I'd lost. The trust, the time, the years I'd spent thinking she was the one. Laura pushed a folder across the desk, breaking my thoughts. "This is all the paperwork we've filed. Everything is locked down, your accounts are secure, you're in the clear." I took the folder and glanced at the papers, feeling a sense of finality. "It's over." "For now," she said with a slight smile, "but there's more ahead. You're not in this alone anymore." I looked at her, unsure of where this was going, but I couldn't help the way my chest tightened. I didn't just want her help anymore, I wanted something more. "Laura," I began, hesitating. "What happens now?" She met my eyes, her expression softening. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," I said, feeling a little embarrassed. "I've been through so much, and you've been here every step of the way. I can't help but think, maybe I misread this. Maybe what if there's something more between us?" She sat back, taking a breath, and for a moment, I thought I'd said the wrong thing. But then she smiled, a soft, knowing smile that made my heart skip a beat. "I've been thinking the same thing," she said, her voice quieter now. "But I didn't want to push you while you were dealing with all of this. It's been a lot for you to take in." "Yeah, it has," I replied, my voice low. "But life's too short for second guessing, right?" She nodded, her smile widening. "Right." We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of everything finally starting to feel lighter. The divorce, the betrayal, all of it. It was still there, but with Laura by my side, it felt like I could finally breathe again. "I think we should take things slow," she said, her tone light but serious. "You've been through enough. We'll figure this out together." "Yeah," I said, nodding. Together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had something real to look forward to. No more scams, no more lies, just a chance to start over, with someone who actually cared. Months later, the store was thriving again. I was back on track, and Laura and I had started planning trips. Real trips, not schemes, not scams. Just something real after the storm. The dust had finally settled. My wife and her boyfriend were in custody, their scheme unraveled. It felt like a weight had been lifted from my chest, but at the same time, a hollow feeling lingered. The divorce was underway, and the store was secure, but the emotional toll had been heavy. I wasn't just dealing with the legal aftermath. I was dealing with the realization that I'd been blindsided by someone I thought I knew. I had to do something to shake off the lingering bitterness, so I decided to take Laura out for dinner. She deserved it. She had been there through all of it, and I owed her more than just a thank you. She'd helped me stand my ground, and for that, I was grateful. We met at a small diner on the edge of town, the kind of place with red leather booths and a jukebox in the corner. It was casual, no pretensions, just a place where we could talk. "Hey," Laura said as she slid into the booth across from me, a grin tugging at the corner of her mouth. "I'm surprised you're not going all fancy after all that legal drama. You know, maybe a 5-star place?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Nah, this place has better coffee anyway." She raised an eyebrow. "You're still all about the simple stuff, huh?" I nodded, leaning back in my seat. "Guess I haven't changed much, but you're right. After everything, fancy doesn't feel right." She smiled, and for a moment, it felt like we were back in high school, just two friends catching up, no pressure. We'd gone our separate ways, and life had thrown us both curveballs, but here we were again. We chatted about random things at first, old high school memories, some of the ridiculous stuff we did when we were younger. It was comfortable. But as the conversation flowed, it drifted into more personal territory, and I could feel that familiar tug in my chest again. "I miss this," I said, surprising myself. "Talking to you like this. It feels like no time has passed." Laura looked down at her coffee, then met my eyes. "Yeah, me too," she said softly, her voice warmer than usual. "I didn't want to push, especially with everything going on. But I'm glad you called. It's been nice seeing you again." I let out a breath, not sure how to say what was on my mind. "You know, when all this started, I never expected I'd be sitting here with you like this. I mean, I needed your help, yeah, but I needed someone who wasn't part of all the mess, someone who understood." She smiled gently, her gaze holding mine a little longer than usual. "I'm glad I could be that person. I really am." I shifted in my seat, the tension building between us. I wanted to say it, wanted to tell her that I was thinking about more than just gratitude, but something held me back. What if she didn't feel the same? "I've been thinking a lot lately," I said, my voice quieter, "about everything, about how we ended up here, and, well, I guess I'm just wondering if maybe I misread things." She tilted her head slightly, her eyes softening. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my thoughts straight. "I don't know. After everything that's happened, I realized I've been leaning on you more than I've let on. And I don't just mean for legal advice. I mean, well, I don't want to rush things, but maybe there's something more here." Laura didn't immediately respond, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee cup. She looked up at me after a moment, a small smile playing at her lips. "I've been thinking the same thing," she said, her voice low. "But I didn't want to push while you were dealing with all of this. You've been through a lot." I could feel my heart race, the words that had been on the tip of my tongue finally coming out. I think I'm ready to see where this goes, not just as a lawyer and client, not just as friends, but maybe something more." She studied me for a moment, her eyes thoughtful. Finally she spoke, her voice steady. "I'm in. We'll take it slow, see where it leads. I'm not in a hurry, but I'm not saying no, either." I couldn't help but smile, the weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt like I was making the right decision for myself. "Slow sounds good," I said. We spent the rest of the evening talking, laughing, and letting the conversation flow like it used to. There was no rush, no pressure. Just two people figuring things out, not trying to force anything, but letting it unfold naturally. As the night ended, I realized I had been looking for something real for so long. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally starting to find it. A few months passed, and things began to settle. The store was thriving again, thanks to the legal protections Laura had helped put in place. My life was getting back on track, and I found myself looking forward to the future instead of dreading it. Laura and I kept things slow, but every moment with her felt like a breath of fresh air. We made plans to travel together, something I had never really done, always too focused on work and keeping things together. But with her it felt different. It felt real. I wasn't rushing, and neither was she. But I could tell we were building something stronger than anything I'd ever had before. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like everything was falling into place. The night felt different from the others. When I walked into the motel bar, it was the same worn-out place I'd visited countless times before, but this time, it didn't feel like a refuge. I'd gotten used to things being uncertain, to living in a cloud of stress and tension. But now, after everything, after the arrest, the divorce papers, the court order, I finally felt like I could breathe. I poured myself a drink, not out of necessity, but out of habit. The cold amber liquid slid down my throat, but instead of the familiar burn, there was something else. Maybe it was the sense of calm, or maybe the weight that had lifted. Either way, I wasn't used to feeling this way anymore. The door opened with a soft jingle of the bell. I turned, half expecting it to be a stranger or a regular. But when I saw her standing there, looking a little out of place, I knew. It was Laura. I froze for a second, unsure of what to say. I'd been wondering if I'd ever see her again, thinking maybe I'd misread everything, thinking maybe she was just being professional, keeping her distance because of the mess I was in. She looked around, then her eyes met mine. Her face softened when she saw me, and I could see the flicker of recognition. She didn't hesitate. "Hey," she said, smiling and stepping toward me. "Got a minute?" I swallowed, my heart picking up the pace as I gestured toward the empty seat beside me. "Yeah, take a seat." She slid into the chair, her eyes meeting mine with that same steady gaze. But now there was something different. No more business, no more legal talk. Just us. "So," she started, glancing down at the glass in my hand, "I didn't expect to see you here tonight." "Yeah, well, I didn't expect to see you here either," I said, trying to keep my tone light. But there was a sharp edge of vulnerability I couldn't quite shake. Laura smiled, but it was softer, more genuine than before. "I'm sorry I disappeared like that," she said, her voice lower, almost apologetic. "My dad got really sick. I had to handle some things, and I lost my phone during the chaos." My mind raced for a second, trying to connect everything. Her absence had been a mystery, and it wasn't like her to vanish, but now, hearing her explain it, it made sense. "I get it," I said, nodding. "Life happens, I know." Her smile grew a little. "I've been meaning to find you again, to talk. I didn't want to just leave you hanging. You were going through enough with the divorce, and I didn't want to make it worse." I set my drink down, suddenly feeling like I'd been holding my breath. "You didn't make anything worse. You helped me more than anyone ever did." There was a quiet moment between us, and for the first time, it felt like the weight of everything that had happened, all the confusion and pain, was starting to fade. We weren't talking about the divorce anymore. We weren't talking about scams or betrayal. We were talking about us, about the quiet, steady connection that had always been there, underneath everything. "So, what now?" I asked, leaning forward slightly. "I mean, I don't want to rush things. I know we've both been through a lot, but I don't want to miss something real." Laura was silent for a beat, like she was weighing the words before she spoke. "I've been thinking about that too. I don't want to push anything, especially with all the mess you've just gone through. But yeah," she added with a small smile, "I think there's something here, something real." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "You're right. Life's too short for second guessing, don't you think?" Laura's eyes softened and she nodded. "I think so." And just like that, something inside me settled. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about moving forward, together. We spent the rest of the night talking, not about the mess we'd both just come through, but about the things that mattered. Plans, hopes, small dreams. It felt natural, like it was supposed to be this way. No more games, no more lies, just us. By the end of the night, I knew I was ready for whatever came next. With Laura by my side, it felt like I could face anything. We agreed to take it slow, to see where this would go. Neither of us was rushing, but we weren't backing away either. Months later, the store was thriving again, steady and secure. The lingering bitterness from the divorce was gone, replaced by a sense of hope for the future. And Laura and I were planning trips, real trips, the kind I had never taken before. No more scams, no more schemes, just something real, something that felt right after all the storms we'd weathered. And this time, it felt like we were building something that would last.